Disclaimer. Before we dive in, I want to make it clear that when I talk about the things that make college suck, I'm not necessarily referring to my own college or personal experience. This episode is a mix of general observations, common frustrations, and stories that I've heard from others. If you feel personally called out, that's probably on the system, not me. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of College Sucks. I'm your host, Davia Samantha Davidson, a student affairs professional who has been in college most of my life. So this week is episode 8, if you're joining on YouTube, and it's probably going to be episode 2 if you are listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify. And why is it that? Because I've been going on for 7 episodes about things that can make your college experience difficult, but I just realized that I didn't dive in to what exactly it is, like completely what makes the college experience so challenging. I've spoken about being a college athlete, being worrying about exams, studying, the cost of college, all of those things. But what is the combination that makes college, a place that sucks for many people? For every college student. So this week, that's what we'll be diving in. College Sucks, episode 8 on YouTube and episode 2 in other places. Why college sucks and how we can ensure that it doesn't have to. Stay tuned. All right, so when I talk about the fact that I've been in college most of my life, I'm seriously not kidding. I went to university at 17 years old, and I took a year in between my undergraduate degree and my master's degree. Well, not 1 year, 2 years. And then I went off to do my master's, and then I took probably 8 or so years, I can't remember exactly, between that and doing my postgraduate diploma. So, and then I work at a college. So when I say I'm in college most of my life, I'm literally not kidding, because 17 versus my age now is the majority of the time that I've been alive. So I know what I'm talking about. I'm not pulling from thin air. I have worked at college as a lecturer and now as a student affairs professional and adjunct lecturer. So I am speaking from a perspective of somebody who's gone to college over and over again and who works at a college. And can I just tell you that in every instance, just like how life is not like bad all the time or great all the time, it's the same thing with college. You do have fun memories. You met your friends there. It's where you determined your career path. It's the thing that's going to lift your family out of poverty or change the trajectory of your life personally. It's where you're going to self-actualize. It's a space of massive importance, but it also sucks. And that's just how it is. If you're somebody who wants to be fit, I'm telling you, not every day that you exercise, it's going to be great. You're going to have some crap workouts. And for me personally, I can relate. I tell people all the time, I'm always telling them, oh, you should exercise, you should go for walks. But I hate it. I don't enjoy it, but it is necessary. It's one of those things. I'm not sure if I will categorize it as a necessary evil, but it is something that's necessary, that's not going to be bringing you joy 24/7. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure what will bring you joy 24/7. So when I say that college has the propensity to be this really awful and difficult experience, I am speaking from the perspective of somebody who went repeatedly. I even did my A-levels at a college. So I didn't finish lower 6 and upper 6. If you are in a kind of British school system, you would understand. In the US, I didn't do grade 11 and 12 for you guys. In a high school, I went to a community college to take my university qualifying exams. So literally, I've been in college since like, because I went there at probably 15, and then you leave when you're 17 and then you're at UE. So I definitely have spent a lot of time in the college space, and I do understand that it is a place that has an ultimate reward because your degree is something nobody can take from you. Okay. If you get lost in a flood or burnt in a fire, you could simply just write to the university and ask for a reprint. It can't be taken away from you. And depending on the kind of degree you have, you may not need to be continuously doing hours to validate it. So if you do medicine or anything in a medical field, or even and law and like engineering, these are fields where you have to continuously be demonstrating by taking courses that you are fit to practice. My first degree is in history, and you just get your degree and that's it. That's the end of that if you want. So it's something no one can take away from you, but it is not easy. And the thing about it is that I get it when students complain. I understand as a fully formed adult now. I know that complaining isn't necessarily going to solve anything, but I do understand because at one point I was the age that many students are in their first year. And I know the pressures, the uncertainty, the constant assessment, the workload, all of those things that makes college difficult. So I just want to talk about specifically now, right? Because I feel like a problem discussed or shared is a problem halved. What are some of the things that's really bugging you about college? And then how can we find ways to make it a little bit easier? Well, first and foremost, the cost. All around the world, unless you are in one of these high tax, high reward Scandinavian or rich European countries, you or our Caribbean neighbors, like I think Barbados, they're still paying for some degrees. You have to foot some of the cost of education. So in Jamaica, the government subsidizes a lot of the cost for running the teachers' colleges in terms of the salaries, because that's a huge bill to pay every lecturer, any member of staff. That's expensive. But there are costs that you, the student, the client, you will have to pay. And when I went to university, and I don't want to age myself, but I remember what my first school fee was because I had never seen so much money written down on a piece of paper before. I mean, even in an accounts class, we weren't dealing with such huge figures. So when I went to the university and they were like, oh, your first year tuition is 67,000 something. I said, what? I'm sorry. In this time, this is a lot of money and I had to borrow that money. So I took a student loan, and the whole time I was in the university, I couldn't stop thinking about it because I was like, who's gonna pay that back? Me? I'm barely getting through my classes. I am struggling. I'm getting overwhelmed. And then when I finish, I'm supposed to start working and then figure out how to pay you back the money. It was just the strangest thing to me. One of my best friend at the time said, don't worry about it. We have to go. So let's just deal with it. Let's just go. Since then, the cost of university has increased tremendously. And I mean, the cost of living overall is crazy. Now, a first-year student at most universities can expect to pay close to $500,000 for tuition alone. And I'm not talking about in the highly paying fields. I'm talking about to be a teacher. I'm talking about to just get a regular liberal arts degree. That's how much it can run you. And so the thought and the cost of it, and having to think about borrowing that money if you're in a 3-year university or a 4-year university, it is petrifying. And so every time you're in class, you really want to, you're thinking, okay, I have to do the best I can. And then the course is so hard. And then everything just goes back to, my parents are spending this money, my spouse is spending this money, I have to be working in the summer overseas or locally to come up with this money, I had to borrow this money. And it's just always in your thoughts. The next thing is the hidden cost. Now, in on an episode about the real cost of college, I spoke about all the things that you have to pay for. Now, tuition is huge, but sometimes how much it takes you to survive throughout college for the year can equal the tuition fee. It's that crazy. And if you're not being supported, if your family can't afford it, if you haven't had access to scholarships, and you might have to have a part-time job just to be able to survive if you've borrowed the money. Because in Jamaica, you can't borrow money to subsidize your time in college. So I know in the States you can borrow money for your tuition and also borrow money to be able to pay your rent and pay for anything that you might need. But those loans are not accessible here. So you're going to be reliant on your own labor or the help of others. So just the cost and thinking about the cost. And by the time you pay it, a semester is so short. By the time you've paid first semester, it's second semester. And if you haven't borrowed the money and it's not secured for the year, you have to be worried over the December holidays about whether or not you're going to be able to go back to school come semester two because you can't afford it. And that's just one of the worst feelings, I'm sure. And it's difficult. Like it's a hard thing to swallow, just how expensive it is to get something that, if we think about it, in 2024 heading into 2025 should just be like, all right, like everybody should have access to affordable university education, but depending on where you live in the world, it's just not a possibility. And so you have to pay for it. And that's just it. Thinking about the cost now and the cost in the future if you borrow the money, or if your relatives are relying on you to pay them back when you start working, that can really make college feel like a burden. All right, the next thing that makes it also quite sucky, and I think for a lot of people this is the focal point, it's the academic pressure. College and high school are two different spaces, two different places. And for me, when I went to university, I just come out of highly, like, if you did GCE Cambridge A levels, listen to me, you will be so exhausted because you study for 2 years and you take an exam and that's it. And that's how you get into university. I was under so much pressure then. And then you go to university and you have your 5 courses to do, and they need to be done over 13 weeks. And you look at your course outline and I promise you, I'm not even lying. Some of the required reading, because I did history, when they would number the books, like how many things you would be expected to read to fully understand and grasp the concept and do well in the course, sometimes it was up to 50 and sometimes 100. I'm not joking. Some of them would be journal articles or, just like newspaper clippings or whatever. But it would be a lot of reading. And when I got to university, they told us you read for your degree. So it was just so much pressure. And then if you are the first person from your family that's going to university, it's even more pressure because you feel like, everybody's depending on me. By the way, nobody knows what you're doing if you're the first person in your family going to university. They have no idea how hard the work is. And sometimes I've had to say to parents, like, lay off calling your child every day and telling them everything that's happening at home. They are having to learn a new thing in a short time and be assessed on it. And that's the next part, the constant assessment. Like you will have a mid-semester coursework, you will have required readings, you will be in your lectures and being asked to answer questions. You're just constantly, it's like a pageant, but it's a pageant for several courses going on every day. And it's non-stop. So after you have paid all this money that you had to find, then you need to be judged with the grades. And it's just hard. A lot of people find it very difficult to balance their time. And some students are restart students meaning they started at another university, it didn't work out, they failed out, or something happened and they had to move and they had to start over somewhere else. And how difficult it is, like pressure is two times, because they're like, oh, this is my second chance, I'm not going to get another chance, I have to work so much harder. And so they put so much pressure on themselves. And then there are some lecturers, I mean, those of us who have gone to university and those of you who are currently in university, I mean, that's what this podcast is for you. You will have identified your lecturers that you find to be difficult and hard to please and who have very high standards for their work. And so some of the things that you would have gotten away with in high school, it won't pass. And it's even harder, I feel, if you were coming from high school where you were one bright person in your class or one of four in your class, and then now you're at college and everybody is on your level or above and you're just average. That has been soul crushing for a lot of students, and it's just really hard. They put a lot of pressure on themselves, they can't manage their time. The student athletes who thought, okay, I'm just going to go to school and run, and then you find out that no, that's not it. You can't just play football. You still have assignments like everybody else, and you need to balance your time. And you see other people who, for them, the college experience, like they're savants. They're just brilliant. For them, it's easy. You can see them idling, and they're still going to be submitting the best work ever. And you are barely getting by, and you're up all night. It can be a kind of crippling experience for you mentally. You can feel so defeated and just overall exhausted from the volume of work, the requirements, and the constant assessment that you have to go through. So for sure, the workload and the grading system, lecturers who hardly come to class sometimes, but when it's and you're fine with it at first, when they're not coming, you're like, oh, it's free time. And then when it comes close to the exam, you're like, oh, I want to go back in time and get back my class hours, because now you're having to cram so much information. And for some people, it starts from day one in terms of your assessment. So you could find yourself behind by week 3 if you haven't caught on to the material, you're not grasping it quickly. So definitely the academic pressure is something that makes college really difficult for a lot of people. The next thing is the struggles of fitting in, finding your group, learning to live with other people, learning to exist in groups, finding a club that matches you, just the whole social struggles. So I went to university before I was 18. I turned 18 there. And when you go, like for me, I went to UAE. The only rule, I lived in an all-female hall. The only rule we had was that men could not sleep over there. They could come, and they had to leave by 1. On other halls, they never had that. Like UAE was the first place I'd ever experienced in my whole life. And it was just such a shock to me. Just the number of parties. Every weekend there was a party. And, just constantly going out or trying to fit in, trying to find a group that matches you. And you're still growing, you're still learning things about yourself. And if you're coming from a situation where you were extremely introverted, like I am, and an ambivert, I spend most of my time being introverted, but I can be extroverted when needs be and with sufficient notice. Okay, and when I'm done with that, I need to go lie down for a couple of hours and recharge. My social battery is not the biggest. And I didn't know that necessarily about myself until I went to university, that I genuinely could not cope with a lot of the social expectations. Like I lived on a hall where you had to be involved in everything in order to get your room back. And after my first year, I didn't qualify to get my room back because I just could not keep up with all of the requirements and still be balancing my schoolwork. And I was worried that, hey, I borrowed this money to come to university. My parents don't have it, and I really have to make the most of it. So it was really, really hard for me. It's a time when dating starts. And if you're in a group and everybody has a boyfriend, or girlfriend and you don't have one, that can be a lot of pressure for you too. It's kind of like, oh, why you can't find somebody, or there's that. And then if you already can't manage your time, and then you're going to add a relationship that you feel pressured to go into just to match to the mix, like it's just going to be so much harder. So the peer pressure that you experience in university is a real thing. A lot of students have failed out because they could not balance the expectation of the new friends and the new group with the pressures of their academic work. And then there is the final thing that I think everybody thinks about while they're in college. Some people will say, I can't wait to start working. In hindsight, I really should have spent more time in college, because working is still not it. It's still not it, guys. I mean, yes, you're getting paid and blah, 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 but working is very similar to college, okay? You're constantly assessed. You have to navigate relationships. You have to know what to say yes or no to. You can be burnt out and overwhelmed. You still have deadlines. It's very similar, which is why mastering college is just the best thing to practice while you're there, because if you can master that, then you can definitely master life, work, and anything else you choose to do after that. It really is a space to come into your own. But I know a lot of things that weigh on the mind of students while they are there is, where am I going to work? Now, if you are already pursuing the specific area, if you're in medical school, you're going to work as a doctor, you're going to a hospital. Your challenge might be what's going to be your specialty, or which hospital are you going to get a job in, or, that kind of thing. So if you are already studying in your specialized field, it is less daunting. It will be more like, am I going to have to move away from my family home? Am I going to have to branch out on my own? Will I get a job in an area that's safe? All of those things. Will the relationship I had in college last as I go into the job market? But nonetheless, wherever your mind is taking you in terms of what's after college, it is something you worry about when you are in college. You think about it. If you in our college system, we have this thing of college parents. So your parents are 1 year above you, and so you are seeing them making the transition, and they're going to leave and go into the job market while you're still in college, if you're progressing the way you should. And you're getting feedback from them, the challenges of applying for jobs, the challenges of interviews, the challenges of just really trying to make life work. And so it's something that weighs in your mind. I borrowed all of this money. Am I going to get a job to be able to pay it back? This is going to be a genuine concern of yours. And it's just how it is. We always, when we are in the present, think about the past and try to imagine what the future is. And a lot of times, I don't know why we don't look at the future as this positive, great thing. There's always some kind of trepidation that comes into your mind about what the future holds. And if you are in a country that's not rich, and like Jamaica, we're a developing country, salaries are low and cost of living is high, you are going to worry about, will my job be able to pay my loans and allow me to own a car and a home? These are things that you are going to be thinking about while you're in college. So everything in its entirety culminates to create this heavy feeling that can stress you out and can overwhelm you. So let's get into now, how are we going to deal with all of these things that we are thinking about and worrying about, and what makes college suck? Well, first and foremost, let's dive into the money. Don't worry about the money while you're there. There you go. You're cured. I know it's easier said than done, but if you can figure out how to secure your tuition and how to come up with money to go to college, once you have a plan, you just have to stick to that plan and do what you need to do. I find that a lot of students are stressed out because they don't have a plan. For me, I find it crazy that you would think to walk up into the people college or university with no money. Like, why would you do that? Borrow it if you need to, because you never know. You might get a windfall. It just doesn't make sense to stress yourself out and not enjoy your college experience because you're so burdened by where the money is going to come from. It is better to sit down with someone and work out a financial plan. Work every summer if you need to, get a part-time job, but have a plan for how you're going to get the money so that when you are in school, you don't have to be worrying every second about where the next dollar is going to come from. And you can really focus on just enjoying college and doing your best in your work. The next thing is academic pressure. It's you have to plan out your semester, and everything starts with a plan. So you have to find out about each course and approach each course with the mindset of I'm here to learn as much as I can, but also I'm here to prepare for an exam. That's the end result. So you are learning the content, but at the end of the day, there is an assessment. And so from the first day of class, you need to be thinking about what will this assessment look like? You need to go and find past papers or look at the projects that you have to complete for the course, ask for clarification, and just always have a plan. Surround yourself with people who are interested in doing their work, who are doing better than you, or have the work ethic that you wish you had to give you the results that you want. All right. It doesn't make sense to spend so much money for college and not try to do as well as it is in your capacity to do. All right. I know there are some subjects that you're going to gravitate towards more than others, and that's okay. But you shouldn't let yourself go. You have no reason to not give each course your best shot. And so it's imperative that you have a plan, just like how you have a plan for your money. You have a plan for what each academic semester is going to look like. All right. The next thing is the social struggles. This is a tricky one because you don't want to leave university without friends. But you also don't want to live with a bunch of friends. A bunch of friends, when you already have this big thing called your schoolwork to do, is very difficult to manage. I am one of the persons that can safely say that I was more afraid of my mother than any friend. And so succumbing to peer pressure wasn't necessarily something that I had to worry about probably 70% of the time. But there was like the 30% that I did go to parties because my friends were going. I did go to clubs because my friends were going. I went to university. My ears weren't pierced. They were pierced after my first year, and I don't mean one piercing. I mean, at the end of the year, I had 5. So, we are susceptible to suggestion, which is what we experience every day. So from the hairstyle that you have or the clothes that you wear, you pick that up from somewhere. So telling you, oh, don't succumb to peer pressure would just be ridiculous because we are influenced. And so the best thing to do, though, is to try to surround yourself with people who have similar value systems to yours and who are also terrified of their parents. So that they're not going to try to do anything that will have their parents very upset with them to just keep you in check. If you went to college as a church person, it would be good to continue on that path. Or if college is your escape from that because you really don't believe in it, it doesn't mean that you need to go all wild and ridiculous. You need to remember that college is a space for self-exploration, but it's also a place that you went to for your degree. You're not supposed to leave without that. The other thing is, don't worry about what the future holds. Your job is to be present. I say it so many times. I wish I had more fun in university because that was the carefree time, to be completely honest. And when I say fun, I mean responsible fun, not no crazy fun. But I really do wish I had made the most of a lot of opportunities that were there and that were available for me. I really wish I had honed into it and just relaxed and stopped being so tense about everything and just enjoyed it because life was going to present enough challenges when I left university. And so if I wanted anything to worry about, I could worry about it then. Let the future take care of itself. That doesn't mean that while you're in college, you're not going to try to prepare for the career you want. I mean, naturally, intern in the summer. Make sure that you're working to build up your experience. Make sure that you're elevating your resume by going the extra mile and getting good grades. But don't get so caught up in wanting to leave that you don't enjoy where you are currently. That's something I will definitely say to you. Oh wow, this is my longest episode yet. So I think it's about time that I wrap it up. But let me just say to you that going to college or university is a unique experience. Not everybody gets to go, and as the cost rises, it is going to be harder for a lot of people. And so no matter what you're going through, I find that a lens of gratitude, just being grateful to be there, is something that you should practice. It really does make the experience a little bit lighter and more meaningful. All right, that's it for this week. Please let me know in the comments what about university or college that's sucky for you. What is it that you can't see, you can't stand? And don't tell me like going, because you're already there. Give me a little bit more detail to work with. I would love to know what it is that makes college suck for you. Until next time, bye.